6 p.m., November 7th, 2025. Under the cover of night, the Afipsky oil refinery in Krasnodar, the fuel lifeline for mechanized formations, became the chosen prize. From a covert site near Kyrylivka, a formation of 90 UAVs launched, accompanied by jammer-equipped craft and 15 warhead-bearing drones, then split into 3 attack axes sweeping across the Sea of Azov. Russia's S-400 and Pantsir batteries roared to life, but dense electronic interference and the sheer mass of incoming targets soon overwhelmed the defenses. What will become of Afipsky? A crippled refinery, or merely the price of a failed drone salvo? The answer unfolds now.
November 7th, 2025. Afipsky Oil Refinery, Krasnodar Krai, Russia. The Afipsky refinery, with an output of 240 million short tons per year, looms like the beating fuel heart of Russia, feeding not only export markets but serving as the milk bottle for mechanized brigades. This target is no accident. It is a vein of pure profit, a vital artery where any strike would ripple with devastating force. Encircling that heart is the so-called shield of air defense, declared tight and confident. At long range, Russia arrays its S-400 Triumph system, a strategic SAM line boasting radar detection at 62 miles, interceptors like the 40 N6 reaching up to 310 miles, and the 96 L6E radar sweeping targets at 62 miles. It is built as a sky curtain, a strategic wall meant to cloak the airspace. Beneath that umbrella lie the Pantsir S one-point defenses. Close-in cannon missile hybrids, armed with 30mm autocannons and short-range 57 E6 missiles, positioned to strike low, near-flying targets, and shield critical assets. The Pantsir is designed to plug the gaps, a bandage of fire beneath the lofty umbrella of the S-400. Inside the command post, radar dishes spin, screens glow with tracking lines, crews move in rehearsed calm. The lieutenant colonel in charge speaks coldly. "We have built a wall. No target can pierce this air defense. Nothing can touch us here. A wall of confidence or a curtain of arrogance? Sometimes, in the American way of putting it, that wall looks more like a painted backdrop waiting for the first hard punch." That night, the intelligence room lit up with screens of data, satellite images, short video clips, scattered electronic signals, and reports from airborne sensors. NATO immediately transferred a series of optical and radar images, near real-time shots showing unusual loading and unloading activity around the oil refinery complex. Those images became the strategic map that helped analysts understand the scale and pace of the target's operations. Standing by the screens, NATO advisors assessed how to minimize risks to civilians and comply with international law. 7 a.m., November 7th, 2025. From a secret launch site in Kyrylivka, Ukraine, the first DJI Mavic roared into the night like a ghost. Every 10 seconds after that, another took off. Within 7 minutes, the entire formation of 90 UAVs had left the launch base. They were like a swarm of suicidal bees trained and pre-programmed for days. Not every UAV carried a warhead. Some carried only jammer/anti-GPS systems to disrupt radar. Only 15 UAVs carried warheads of nearly 65 pounds of PBX-12, a variant of thermoplastic polymer explosive with superior penetration power, all aimed at a single target, the Afipsky oil port. Instead of flying straight in, the swarm split over the Azov Sea into 3 main axes, forming a tactical pincer to deceive radar and jam Russian air defenses. North axis, 30 UAVs followed the Krasnodar farmlands, flying under 656 feet to completely avoid ground radar. This was in the very no-fly zone Russia had imposed. East axis, 30 UAVs passed through the Markot range, avoiding S-400 and Pantsir S-1 positions, flying low and hugging the terrain. West axis, 30 UAVs skimmed close to the water, flying along the Kuban River. The entire UAV formation was controlled through the Matrix 300 RTK platform, a low-level AI system integrating computer vision, high-resolution infrared cameras, and real-time digital terrain mapping. Even when GPS signals were jammed by the enemy, The system automatically switched to inertial navigation and image-based positioning, using onboard camera footage to match against digital maps. Power lines, transmission stations, tree lines, drainage ditches. AI mapped them all as key navigation markers. No radio signals were emitted, no noisy remote control needed, and that is why the DJI Mavic 2 became a nightmare for defense systems. It was practically immune to Russian electronic warfare. So much for Moscow's invincible jamming systems, more like an expensive paperweight. If you find this video useful, make sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next analysis. 7:31 a.m. As the swarm approached the refinery area, just 20 miles away, Ukraine suddenly activated a trump card from the very start of the campaign. From a command center near Kyrylivka, the jammer/anti-GPS systems were switched on, with drones carrying them diving toward Russian air defenses, generating false signals to confuse radar. The sole function of these UAVs was to absorb the first missile volleys from the defense systems. Within 3 minutes, they forced S-400 and Pantsir S-1 radars to operate at maximum capacity. Dense signals suddenly appeared on the screens. Alarms blared. The soldiers panicked at the blaring yellow siren. The command post activated the small targets, large numbers scenario, prioritize attrition with high-rate artillery fire and short-range missiles, while also launching a few medium/long-range missiles into concentrated target tracks to break up formations. The strategic air defense system was alerted. The S-400 command post began the target lock process, and the Pantsir S-1 batteries went to combat mode. Electronic Protection EP was activated to try to filter out the jamming. 7:35 a.m. The air defense systems opened fire. S-400 and Pantsir missiles, worth $500,000, were launched to destroy Ukrainian UAVs worth $2,000. Some UAVs were shredded by Pantsir gunfire and 30mm shells, charred wreckage sporadically falling to the outskirts. Other clusters were incinerated in mid-air by Pantsir missiles. Several S-400 interceptors detonated in the air, producing shrapnel and local blast overpressure, enough to deflect trajectories or destroy nearby UAVs. However, not everything was extinguished. The Warhead-carrying UAVs were programmed to establish alternate flight paths via their AI. They flew low and moved last. They threaded through tree lines, gradually descending to 100 feet as they closed on the target. The first two dove straight into the port's operations center. The blast nearly severed Primorsk's nerve center. As flames erupted from the upper floors, two more UAVs simultaneously struck a warehouse holding 146,000 liters of oil to the south. One dove into Control Room 1, destroying the power station and halting the oil pumps mid-flow. One crashed into the refinery's technical plant. The UAVs that concentrated there were intended to damage the plant without affecting civilians. A column of flame nearly 100 feet high roared up. That night, as flames consumed Afipsky's fuel tanks and black smoke climbed into the sky, the refinery ceased to be just a coordinate on a map. It became an open wound between sea and land, a scar visible from satellites and coastlines alike. Storage tanks burst apart, pipelines cracked, and the main control rooms went dark as fire and explosions choked the flow of oil. Cranes stood frozen, unloading arms bent and twisted. The docks emptied in confusion as ships drifted offshore, waiting for orders that would never come. The entire fuel chain, from storage to export, froze in an instant, echoing from the industrial yard to international markets. The military response came fast and hard. Regional air defenses scrambled to full alert. Launch crews and port security shifted to combat readiness, intercepting what drones remained in the sky. The threat was blunted, but the price was steep. Ammunition nearly exhausted, radar arrays overloaded, and several defense sectors temporarily blind. To stabilize the area, port authorities suspended all ship movements, rerouted maritime traffic, and prioritized emergency containment. Meanwhile, in Moscow, the reaction was furious. Accusations flooded diplomatic channels. Official statements demanded an investigation, while international observers called for restraint and transparency. The strike had not only destroyed infrastructure, it had shaken confidence, becoming a geopolitical tremor broadcast across newsrooms and embassies worldwide. Then came the human cost. Toxic smoke rolled over coastal neighborhoods, forcing overnight evacuations. Firefighters and rescue teams fought through heat and debris, extinguishing flames and tending to the wounded. Evacuation centers filled with displaced residents. Oil slicks spread across the water, staining the coast and devastating local fisheries. The air stank of burnt hydrocarbons, the sea shimmered with a thin film of poison, and the soil absorbed the residue of combustion. These weren't damages measured only in currency or square footage. They were long-term scars on the environment and human health, demanding cleanup and restitution long after the fire's glow faded. Strategically, the event revealed a harsh modern truth. Inexpensive, coordinated drone warfare can cripple assets worth billions. The balance between cost and consequence tilted sharply. Defending such infrastructure became more expensive than destroying it. Ukraine's strike achieved its tactical aim: supply disruption, resource strain, and psychological shock, but also carried political and humanitarian consequences that could test international support. Beyond the battlefield, the economic ripples widened. Rising fuel prices, disrupted trade routes, and crippled coastal economies. Cleanup and reconstruction costs would weigh heavily on local authorities for months. And in the background loomed the greatest risk of all: escalation. Each retaliatory act threatened to ignite a wider conflict. The question lingered over the smoke-filled horizon. What is the true price of a strategic strike, and who bears the cost when the flames reach beyond the target?